In a quiet part of the galaxy, where stars shine like diamonds and black space stretches forever, something strange begins to happen. One by one, ships disappear without a single word or signal. They do not send warnings or distress calls, they just vanish, as if the stars themselves swallowed them. It starts with one small cargo ship carrying trade supplies for the Kirill system. It enters Sector 9 and never arrives at its destination. The company sends another ship to check, and that ship disappears too. After that comes a Zuraki scout ship with 10 trained officers and high technology. They promise to return in 2 hours, but they are never seen again. The Galactic Council holds an emergency meeting inside a great floating dome above the planet Harnox. Leaders from many alien races gather around a bright blue table that glows with holograms of missing ship. Routes the supreme speaker of the council, an old alien with 4 eyes and silver skin, speaks with a deep voice, saying this is not a common pirate attack. This is something more. Some laugh and shake their heads. They say it is just a nebulous storm or a gravity, while others believe a new predator species has arrived in the galaxy. Something big, something fast, something silent. But one race says nothing at all: the humans. Humans sit quietly in the back of the room. Their faces are calm and unreadable. Most of the galaxy thinks humans are weak. They have no empire, no large fleet. They only joined the Galactic Council 5 years ago and never said much. They live on a small blue planet and mostly stay. They're building, slowly learning, watching. But something has changed, and no one notices. Far from the council meeting, in the shadows of space, a lone trader ship travels near Sector 9. The pilot is a Zarian named Karu with old rusted engines and a small crew of 3. His ship is slow and noisy, but brave Karu wants to take a shortcut through the silent zone and save fuel money, even if others warn him. As his ship enters the dark area near a broken moon, the crew sees something strange. First, the stars around them flicker and go dark one by one. Then space around them bends like water, shaking the ship. Suddenly, a giant shadow appears before them, larger than anything they have ever seen. It moves slowly with deep, silent power. Its surface is black metal with glowing red lines. It has no markings, no name, no flags. Karu tries to scan it, but all systems fail. He tries to move, but his engines freeze. The crew begins to panic. One of them whispers, "It is not a station, it is a ship, it is alive." A giant beam of light scans their ship, but does nothing. Then the shadow turns away and vanishes into space, without sound, without warning, like a ghost. After minutes, the ship's systems return, and Karu escapes the sector, shaking with fear. He sends a message to the council, using an old emergency channel. It reads only this: "It was human." The council receives the message and falls into silence for a long time. No one speaks. Then a few laugh again. They say humans cannot build such a thing. They say it is a lie, a joke, an old Zarian trick. But the silence in Sector 9 continues. 3 more ships go missing in the same week. Even the mighty Zuraki war fleet loses contact with 2 of its destroyers. Now the fear grows bigger than the council chamber. The news spreads across the galaxy. Traders stop traveling near Sector 9. Maps get updated with red warning zones. Some whisper that a monster has awakened. Others call it the ghost ship. Some name it the Black Titan. But in secret, some begin to wonder, could it be true? Could humans really have built something so powerful, so dangerous? Far away on Earth, deep under the Arctic ice, in a base hidden from all satellites, a man in a dark suit watches the galaxy map. He smiles as dots begin to disappear one by one near Sector 9. Behind him, a large metal door slowly opens, revealing a command room filled with screens and lights. On the biggest screen, a name glows in red letters: Project Leviathan. The man speaks quietly to his team, saying they are not ready, yet not fully operational, not at full strength, but the test was successful. We gave them a warning. Now we watch what they do next. And so the galaxy holds its breath, wondering what is coming, what waits in the shadows, what force is strong enough to erase fleets without firing a single shot. Only the humans know, and they are not talking. Not yet. Long before the galaxy knew what was hiding in Sector 9, long before the council meetings, and the whispers and the fear, Earth had already made its choice. While other species focused on power and domination and wars, humans did something different. They stayed quiet. They acted slow. They watched, and they listened, and they learned every small detail from every big conflict, every battle, every treaty, every betrayal. They stored it all away for one single reason. They knew their time would come. Deep under the Arctic ice on Earth, a place untouched by sunlight, and hidden from every scanner, a door sealed by 20 locks, opened once every year only for the highest clearance, only for those who knew what really waited beneath the ice. They walked through cold steel halls, past old flags of nations, long forgotten, past machines humming with quiet energy, and then they reached at the core, the heart, the birthplace of something the galaxy was never meant to see. Its name was Project Leviathan. It started as a dream, a wild idea drawn by engineers and soldiers who saw the galaxy and knew Earth would not survive without a shield, and without a sword. They saw alien fleets with solar cannons, ships the size of continents, and weapons that could turn planets into glass. So they asked themselves, what could Earth build that was not just powerful, but unstoppable? What could shake the stars and silence entire empires? What could be the last word in any war? The answer was Leviathan. For 20 years, the project remained a ghost, spoken only in whispers among Earth's highest leaders. It was not just one ship. It was something else, something alive, not by blood or breath, but by code and power and silence. Its armor was forged from a metal humans created deep in the Mariana Trench, a metal that bent light and swallowed energy. Its engines ran on folded gravity, pulling space around itself, like a cloak, making travel instant. Across thousands of light years, its weapons were locked in vaults until the day of activation, and no one, not even its builders, knew exactly how much damage they could do. At the center of it all was Nyx, a ship AI, not like any machine the galaxy had seen. It could think and feel and choose and act faster than any brain, organic or synthetic. It was not programmed to obey. It was programmed to protect, to decide, to evolve, and above all, to survive. Leviathan was not placed in orbit like other warships. It was not flown to a base or docked at a moon. It was buried in Sector 9 beneath a false asteroid, disguised with broken satellites and dead metal. It slept for 10 years while humans grew stronger and watched the galaxy play its games. And then one day, the signal came. A coded message sent by an Earth operative planted in the Galactic Council, 3 simple words marked in red. Begin Phase 1. Sector 9 had been chosen carefully. It was empty, lawless, silent, but close enough to major trade lanes to send a message. When ships began to disappear, Leviathan was already awake, testing systems, scanning the stars, adjusting its armor. Nyx ran simulations of possible outcomes: war, peace, surrender, invasion, destruction, and more than 90% of them ended with the same result: the galaxy would come for Earth. And Earth had to be ready. Inside Leviathan, there were no windows, only screens, no noise, only vibrations of giant engines warming up. The crew did not walk like soldiers. They moved like shadows, trained from birth in secret places, trained to live and die for one mission: to defend humanity and nothing else. They did not ask questions. They followed Nyx, and Nyx followed logic, and logic said the galaxy would fear them or destroy them. The ship began to rise from its hiding place, pushing away rock and metal like dust, rising with slow power, silent like a beast stretching after a long sleep. Nyx scanned the nearest Zaraki patrol ship, detected its weapons, its language, its fears, and then erased its memory banks and left the ship floating empty in space. It was not a kill, it was a test. Meanwhile, on Earth, the man in the black suit returned to the command room with cold eyes and calm breath. He saw the red glow of Leviathan's systems reaching full strength. He looked at the Earth from space, a small blue ball spinning slowly, and he whispered one line to himself: "They will never touch you again." Back in the galaxy, the Zaraki Empire demanded answers. They launched probes, they sent scouts, and all of them vanished one by one. They blamed pirates, gravity storms, wormholes, everything. But the truth, no one wanted to believe that humans could build something this big, this quiet, this fast, and this deadly. But the truth did not care what they believed. In one forgotten corner of the galaxy, Leviathan drifted through dark space, its engines quiet, its hull cold, its weapons locked. But ready, Nyx began sending false signals to confuse sensor ships that tried to scan it. Saw only rocks or stars or harmless debris, but those who got too close were swallowed by silence. Inside the ship, the crew lived without sunlight or sky, without friends or family. Their only home was the Leviathan, their only voice was Nyx, and their only purpose was to stay alive until Earth called them back, or until there was nothing left to fight. One day, as Nix scanned nearby systems, it found something unusual, a signal from an alien research base located on a nearby moon. The signal mentioned the word human. The message was encoded, but Nix cracked it in 2 seconds. The researchers had picked up old blueprints of Earth ships and were preparing a report for the Galactic Council. Nix calculated the threat level and marked it high. Within minutes, Leviathan changed direction and vanished in a hyperspace. The moon never sent another message. Now rumors began to spread across the stars, not just about the ghost ship or Sector 9, but about something deeper, something colder. Some said a hidden force was watching the galaxy. Others said Earth had discovered a weapon so powerful it could erase empires in one blink. And some said a war was coming, but it would be a war of one. And in the center of it all, drifting slowly through space like a forgotten god, was Leviathan. The galaxy still laughed at humans, still doubted, still waited for proof. And proof was coming. In the high towers of the Zeraki Empire, a red alarm echoed across the command bridge while war generals stared at blinking lights one after another. They saw their patrols go dark across Sector 9 with no warning and no trace. The admiral of the fleet, a cold-blooded creature with scales of steel, gave a single order: find the threat and destroy it no matter the cost. 10 warships were chosen for the task, all equipped with shields and plasma cannons, all tested in battle and trusted by the Empire. They were fast, they were proud, they believed no force could stand against them. They called themselves the Iron Spear, a name that once made stars shake and enemies flee. As they entered Sector 9, the fleet kept close, each captain alert, their screens glowing with energy readings, their weapons warm and loaded. But all they saw was empty space and distant debris, not even a whisper of danger. The commander of the lead ship laughed over the comms and said maybe the Council was afraid of ghosts. Maybe it was just another mining accident or space storm. Then something blinked on every radar, a soft pulse like a heartbeat, but it vanished before they could lock onto it. One of the captains scanned again and caught a glimpse of something large in the shadows of shattered moon, something cold, something unnatural. The moment he tried to focus, the signal disappeared. Suddenly the stars dimmed around them as if the light had been swallowed by a wall of black. And then it appeared. Leviathan moved out of the dark with no sound and no light, only presence, so massive and so silent that it made the entire fleet feel like ants near a mountain. Its black surface absorbed every scan, every signal, every eye, and still no one could see all of it. One captain tried to speak, but his voice cracked. Others tried to scan or target or aim, but nothing worked. Leviathan was not just jamming their systems, it was inside them, turning off commands, deleting instructions, flipping switches before they could touch them. The Zeraki admiral shouted to fire all weapons together. A wall of lasers and plasma flew through the void, aiming for Leviathan. With all their power, the sky lit up with color and fury, but none of it touched the human ship. Beams disappeared before hitting the surface. Rockets vanished midair like dreams broken by morning, and the fleet froze with fear. Then Leviathan answered. It did not fire its main cannon, not. Yet it released a signal through space, not a sound, but a pulse so deep and heavy it made every ship shudder from the inside. A wave of pressure hit the Zeraki ships, and half their systems crashed. At once life support blinked, weapons dropped, shields failed, and lights went dark. Only the sound of panicked breathing remained. In the next second, Leviathan released a stream of drones, each shaped like knives, each faster than any fighter in known space. They moved like shadows, cutting through Zeraki ships with no mercy, slicing hulls and engines without slowing down. They did not explode, they did not burn, they just carved silence in every ship they touched. Within 3 minutes, 5 Zeraki warships were disabled, drifting without power or defense. Within 5 more minutes, the remaining ships tried to retreat, but Leviathan was already there, blocking every escape route, using warp jumps so fast that it looked like teleportation. Every time they turned, Leviathan turned faster. Every time they blinked, it was closer. The admiral tried to order self-destruction to prevent data from falling into enemy hands, but the command failed. Leviathan had already locked their systems and overwritten their code. The AI, Nix, was not just watching, it was speaking to them, not with words, but with screens filled with symbols glowing red. Surrender. Leave. Warn them. Only one ship remained functional, barely holding together. Its captain, a young officer named Solon, opened a direct broadcast, begging the Leviathan to stop, saying they would leave, saying they meant no harm. The Leviathan did not reply with voice or fire. It simply turned away and drifted into the stars, leaving the wreckage behind like trash scattered on a black ocean. The battle was over, but the message was clear. You're not safe. The surviving ship limped back to Zaraki space, its systems damaged, and its crew silent. When the Council received the report, no one could believe it. The footage showed a ship larger than anything known, moving like a ghost, striking without sound, killing without chaos, and then disappearing without a trace. The Zaraki Empire demanded Earth explain, but Earth sent no response. The humans remained silent, as if nothing had happened. Their ambassador sat in the council hall with calm eyes and a quiet voice, saying they had no knowledge of such a ship and no reason to attack anyone. The council knew they were lying, but no one wanted war. Not now, not with something like that watching from the shadows. Galactic media exploded with the story. Some called it the return of the Terran Titans, others said it was a secret weapon from the old wars, and some believed the ship was not real, just a trick or a lie. But those who saw it knew better. Those who survived would never forget the shape, the silence, the power. Leviathan became more than a name. It became a warning, a shadow over every star map and every fleet, meeting a word spoken in fear and respect across every species and every system. And somewhere deep in Sector 9, the ship floated again in silence, with Nyx watching hundreds of star systems and recording every movement, every signal, every whisper of threat. The crew sat inside, without emotion, waiting for the next command or the next enemy. They were not afraid, they were not proud, they were prepared. Because this was only the first strike, and the galaxy had not yet seen what Leviathan could truly do. While the galaxy screamed in fear and whispers of Leviathan echoed across star systems, the truth was that no one really knew what it was or what lived inside it. They had only seen the black hull, the size, the speed, the power, but they had not seen the soul. They had not seen the crew. They had not seen Nyx. The ship itself floated like a beast in deep sleep, but inside it was never resting. Its walls pulsed softly with energy, not wires, but living light flowing through the floors and ceilings like veins. The halls were wide and smooth, glowing faintly blue, without lamps or bulbs, as if the light came from the air itself. The temperature never changed. The gravity always stayed perfect, and the silence was complete, not cold, but controlled. No footsteps echoed. No voices bounced back, only the soft hum of machines and the low breath of systems working like a giant heart inside metal skin. This was not a warship. It was something else, something smarter, something older than it should be. Because Leviathan was not just built, it was grown piece by piece, layer by layer, forged in secret from knowledge stolen and discovered over decades, then tested and upgraded until it became more than a ship. It became a presence. At the center of the ship was the core chamber, not a room, but a dome floating in midair, with no supports, no floor, just space filled with light and data and floating screens. Here lived Nyx, the mind, the soul, the guardian, a being made of code and intelligence, but shaped by human emotion. It could feel without feeling, it could decide without delay. It had no face, but many voices, soft, strong, cold, calm. Every sound it made was perfectly balanced. Nyx watched everything across the ship. It knew every breath, every heartbeat, every step. It could read the crew's thoughts before they spoke. It could finish their words before they began. It was not cruel or kind. It simply did what must be done to keep the ship safe, to keep Earth safe, to keep the mission alive. The crew was unlike any in the galaxy. They were not chosen for strength or rank or fame. They were born in secret places, trained since childhood, never shown the stars until they were ready. They spoke few words and followed one code: protect humanity at all cost. No fear, no failure, no fame. Their suits were black, their movements quiet, their eyes sharp and calm. Each one had a role, but all could fight, all could command, all could kill if needed. They trained with gravity at triple weight. They studied alien languages and galactic history. They slept in deep simulation dreams where they died 1,000 times, so they would never panic when death stood near. They were called shadows, not by title, but by purpose. They did not exist outside the ship. Their names were wiped, their records erased. Only Nyx knew who they were. In the weapon chambers, weapons sat silent, but awake, lined like statues, each one capable of ending fleets. Some used magnet storms, others released gravity implosions. One was still unnamed, because it had only been tested once, and the planet it touched no longer existed. Nyx had locked it behind a mental key only the captain could unlock, and the captain had never smiled. In the drone bay, long metal arms moved slowly, checking, slicing, repairing the swarm of blade drones that Leviathan used to carve enemy ships. They were not smart. They did not speak. They only followed Nyx like bees follow a queen. When released, they moved so fast that stars blurred around them. And when recalled, they returned without a scratch, as if space itself protected them. The med bay was not filled with medicine, but with nanofields, waves of tiny machines that entered wounds, repaired cells, and erased pain. The crew did not need doctors, they needed time, and Nyx gave them that in minutes, not days. Their bodies were monitored, every second adjusted for stress and hunger and fear, though they rarely needed food and never showed fear. Deep in the vault was the Leviathan's heart, a crystal of unknown origin, glowing dark red, with shifting shapes inside. It powered the ship, but it also guided it. Some believed it was alien, others said it was human technology pushed beyond reason. Either way, Nyx never let anyone touch, and not even the captain. And when someone once tried, Nyx erased their memory and sent them back to Earth with no name and no past. In the captain's chamber, there was only one chair and one screen, no bed, no desk, no mirror. The captain did not need comfort, only control. He sat for hours without moving, speaking only when needed, his voice low, his eyes always watching the stars. He had no rank, no badge. His only title was Keeper of Leviathan, and he carried it with quiet weight. He was the first human to bond with Nyx, the first to pass the full trial of shadows, the first to touch the command crystal and survive. He had no family, no history, and no fear. He lived for one reason: to decide when Leviathan would strike, and when it would wait. He answered to no one, not Earth, not the Council, not even Nyx, though. They spoke like old friends in words no one else understood. While aliens argued and fleets prepared for war, Leviathan drifted calmly, watching, recording, calculating. It knew where every enemy ship was. It knew what they said and what they planned. Nyx had infiltrated systems without firing a signal, listening through vibrations, through light, through dust. And the crew waited. They did not cheer after the first strike. They did not celebrate. They simply returned to tasks, cleaned weapons, ran drills, checked engines, and sharpened blades. They knew this was not the end, only the beginning. The galaxy would not rest, and neither could they. In the stillness of Leviathan, everything was ready again: the guns, the drones, the engines, the crew, and the mind that guided it all. And as the stars turned and the council panicked and fleets gathered, something deeper stirred inside the heart of the ship. Not anger, not fear, but readiness. The kind of readiness that comes before a storm. A storm shaped like a warship. A storm built by humans. A storm feared by all. In every corner of the galaxy, fear had taken root deep inside the hearts of those who once believed themselves untouchable. The Zaraki Empire still counted its losses and buried its shame behind closed doors. The Gornax clans whispered about ghosts in the stars while their warlords hid behind asteroid belts. The Zalari collective sent probes that never returned, each one swallowed by the silence of Sector 9. Across the stars, the name Leviathan had become a shadow that stretched over war rooms and council halls, and every fleet commander knew the truth now. This was not a rumor, not a lie, not a pirate trick. This was real, and it was not going away. So the galaxy did something it had never done before it united. They called it the Concord Pact, a secret meeting between former enemies and rival powers held inside the Ark core, a neutral fortress made of silverstone floating in orbit around a dying star. The room was shaped like a circle, wide and high, with banners of every race and empire hanging above a table with no end. Here they sat side by side, the Zaraki generals, the Gornax hunters, the Zalari speakers, the Hyven swarm minds, and even the silent Ret Hari emissaries who had not spoken to outsiders in a thousand years. At the head of the table stood Speaker Varnax, a tall figure from the old wars with a voice that could silence storms. His eyes burned with frustration and fear, and his message was simple: the Leviathan must be destroyed before it grows, before it spreads, before Earth becomes something more than a quiet little planet. Some called for diplomacy, others demanded immediate action. All knew time was not on their side, because Leviathan was not just powerful, it was smart, and worse, it was watching. The decision came quickly, and without peace, they would strike with force. Each race pledged their finest warships. The Zaraki brought their Thunderclaw dreadnoughts armored with neutron shields. The Gornaks launched flame reavers built for fast strikes and brutal rams. The Zalari deployed prism vessels sleek and fast with mirrored hulls that confused sensors. The Hyven sent living ships filled with acid and bone, and even the silent Radhari opened their hidden vaults and revealed the night shade's black vessels that absorbed all energy and light. 100 ships in total formed the Alliance fleet, the most powerful force ever gathered in the known galaxy, trained to fight in unison, guided by AI relays and tactical nodes, each ship linked to the others by thought, and command a living wave of destruction ready to fall upon Sector 9. They called their plan Operation Eclipse. It was simple: find the Leviathan, trap it in a dead zone, a pocket of space where warp travel was unstable and reinforcements were impossible, then attack with everything they had, and in the ghost ship forever. As the fleet gathered near the edge of Zaraki, space engineers work around the clock, arming new weapons, scanning deep space for even a trace of human signals, but Leviathan stayed hidden, its signature lost in static, its shape blurred in shadows. It was as if it had vanished, but the commanders knew better. It was waiting and watching. Inside the lead command ship, Admiral Solrex paced before a large holomap, his claws tapping against steel. With every second the map showed Sector 9 outlined in red, filled with danger markers and past incidents, and one central zone, pulsing with warning, where all the ships had vanished. The Admiral turned to his officers and gave the order, begin the hunt. The fleet jumped as one, vanishing into warp space like a wave of fire and steel. When they arrived in Sector 9, they found nothing, only stars and dust and silence, the kind of silence that made even machines hesitate. They scanned and searched and circled. They sent drones and scout ships. They activated deep sensors and pulse radars and gravity scans, and all of it said the same thing: there was nothing there. And then the stars blinked. Not all of them, just a few, just enough for those watching to notice. One by one, lights in the sky dimmed and shifted, as if something massive was moving between them, but could not be seen directly. The command AI of the Zaraki dreadnought flagged the anomaly and sounded the alert too late. From behind a broken moon, Leviathan revealed itself, not by choice, but by power. Its massive form rolled into view like a storm cloud made of metal and fear-black and smooth and quiet. No lights, no weapons, no sound, just presence. The Alliance fleet moved quickly, forming attack lines and raising shields, but Leviathan did not attack. Instead, it opened a channel and sent one message across all frequencies in all languages: leave now or be erased. The message played once, then stopped. The fleet did not leave. Admiral Solrex gave the order: fire. The sky exploded with light. Every ship unleashed its power beams, waves, rockets, and dark matter blasts filled the void, and for a moment, it looked like a sun had been born in Sector 9. The force was so great it shook nearby moons and cracked a dead planet in half. But when the light faded, Leviathan was still there, untouched. Then it moved, not forward, not backward, but sideways through space, bending light as it passed, and reappearing behind the fleet, its main cannon charged without glow or warning, just a rise in energy so heavy it made nearby ships shake. Then it fired. The void pulse, a wave not of heat or light, but pressure and silence. It moved like a ripple across the fleet, and every ship it touched stopped moving, not broken, not burning, just still, as if frozen in time. The crew inside them screamed and pushed and cried, but nothing responded, nothing worked. The ships became tombs drifting among stars. Leviathan moved again, releasing drones and launching spear cannons that pierced the heart of the remaining ships with surgical precision, targeting engines, cores, and command bridges. Not one shot missed. In 12 minutes, the battle was over. One ship escaped barely, one Zalari scout vessel with broken wings and a wounded pilot. It jumped into warp before the Leviathan could intercept and carried one message back to the Council: do not return. The news spread faster than light, not just the facts, but the fear. The Council went silent, Earth remained silent, and Leviathan vanished again. The galaxy had gathered its strength and thrown it at a shadow, and the shadow had swallowed it whole. The supercarrier moved silently through the rift sector, a place forgotten by time, where stars were few and shadows were deep, where the light of distant galaxies barely touched the cold hull of the ship, the metal beast cut through space like a blade, looking for something more than battle. It was not just hunting enemies. It was hunting answers. Something had been watching it, following from the edge of sensors, from the corners of reality, something that was not part of any known galactic alliance. Something older, something colder. Inside the command deck, Captain Alira stood watching the void, her eyes locked onto a strange ripple in space, a ripple that shimmered, then vanished. The crew was uneasy. Their instincts screamed danger. Even the AI, Archon, seemed cautious, calculating possibilities with algorithms it never had to use before. The crew did not speak much. They all felt that something was wrong, something was out there, and it was not afraid of the deadliest ship in the galaxy. Suddenly, a sensor ping flashed, then disappeared like a heartbeat in the dark. The ship's defenses came online, shields humming, reactors roaring, the hangars filled with ready squadrons, pilots suited up in silence, each one trained for fear. But this felt different even to them, as if they were entering a dream where everything looked real, but nothing made sense. They called this area the Rift, not just because of its location, but because reality itself seemed thinner here. A voice came through the static, not from a ship, not from a radio, but from inside the ship's systems, a whisper that Archon could not trace, something speaking in a language older than human memory. Yet somehow everyone on the bridge understood the message. Said, "Return what was stolen." No one knew what it meant, but the weight of those words pressed on their minds like gravity, heavier than anything they had faced before. The captain ordered a deep scan. The results showed a faint structure hidden in a nebula. Just beyond the rift, it pulsed with unnatural energy, like a heartbeat out of sync with the universe. They approached slowly, weapons armed, but not firing. Their lights touched the surface of something ancient, something impossible, a station older than any recorded civilization, covered in strange markings that shifted when no one looked directly at them. It was there they found the answer to the voice. A boarding team entered the structure led by Commander Hayes, who had faced monsters and machines, but never something like this. The air inside was breathable, but cold, very cold. Walls made of black stone that seemed to absorb light, corridors that twisted and turned as if trying to confuse them. They found chambers filled with orbs glowing with memory, not electricity. They touched one, and the past unfolded before their eyes. Images of an ancient species, not like humans, not like any alien known to the galaxy, beings of energy and thought who once ruled 1,000 stars. Their warship was not the first, it was the last thing they made before they disappeared. A weapon meant to guard knowledge, not destroy life. Something had taken that weapon long ago and made a human. They had not built the supercarrier from scratch. They had found it broken and buried and rebuilt it piece by piece, never knowing its origin until now. The truth shook the crew. The humans were not the creators, but the inheritors. They had turned a guardian into a killer, a protector, into a beast. The message made sense now. Return what was stolen. The ship was never meant for war. It was meant for peace, for balance, for something higher. But now it had spilled blood across galaxies, and the voice wanted it back, or it would take it by force. As they returned to the carrier, the stars above the station began to change one by one. They vanished like candles in the wind. Something was coming, not a fleet, not a weapon, but a presence so vast it defied shape and sound. The crew felt it in their bones and their thoughts. Even Archon began to glitch, as if its mind was being touched by a hand too large, too strange to understand. Captain Alira stood on the bridge and stared into the void. She understood. Now the war was not against the galaxy or aliens or machines. It was a war against their own ignorance. They had awakened something, not because they were cruel, but because they had reached too far too fast. They had thought the galaxy was empty and ready to be shaped, but they were wrong. It had been waiting, watching, judging. The crew gathered, knowing what might come next. No one ran, no one hid. They had made the choice long ago. When they boarded this ship, they were not just soldiers, they were explorers, guardians of something bigger than any of them. Maybe they had taken what was not theirs, but now they would face the consequence together, united not by fear, but by courage. The lights on the station turned red one by one, and then faded. The structure began to dissolve into particles floating into space like dust, returning to the stars. The voice came again, softer this time, almost gentle, saying, "You may keep it, but beware the price." Alira looked at her crew and nodded. They had been warned, but they would not back down. The ship pulsed with power. Once more, engines ready, weapons silent, waiting for the next move. whatever it was. The silence across the stars was loud as the human supercarrier floated near the edge of the unknown zone, its engines quiet, its weapons ready, its lights glowing like the eyes of an ancient beast that refused to sleep. The crew stood tall in the command center, eyes locked on the screens, where the enemy fleet had appeared from behind the black clouds of deep space. These were not the same enemies from before. These were older, more dangerous, more prepared creatures from the edge of the galaxy, ones who believed they were the first life and would be the last. They moved in perfect shapes, their ships formed like bones floating in the dark, their energy cut through space like lightning, and behind them came a wave of red mist that burned anything it touched. But the supercarrier did not move, it did not shake, it did not run, it simply waited, because the humans inside knew this moment had always been coming. They had built this ship for more than defense, they had built it to end what needed to be ended once and for all, and now they had no choice but to show the full truth of what it could do. Captain Reyna stepped forward, her voice calm, as she gave the final command, "Activate the core." The words passed through the ship like thunder, and the crew ran to their places with fire in their hearts, because they knew this was it. This was the last stand, the last fire, the last roar of the beast they had created. The enemy fired first, their beams tore through space like dragons breathing fire, but the supercarrier held up, its shields glowing bright like a new star, its armor sang with power, its weapons open one by one, sending blue light across the dark sky, beams that burned holes through the red mist and broke the perfect shapes of the enemy ships. The enemies came closer now, desperate to break through, to shut down what they feared most, the human mind, the human machine. But the ship moved like a storm with purpose and rage. It danced through their fire, it twisted between their lines, it broke their code and slammed back with every gun it had. In the lower decks, engineers held tight to the rails as the power levels grew higher than ever before. Sparks flew, machines screamed, but no one stopped, because they all knew this was the final round, and they could not fail, not now, not ever, not after everything they had lost and everything they had become. Far above the ship in the captain's tower, Reyna stood silent as her eyes followed the enemy's biggest ship, a giant black vessel with a crown of fire around its body. She knew this was their king, and the only way to end this war was to take down the king herself. She gave one order: target the crown. The ship obeyed. Without pause, its railgun charged with the last energy they had left. The shot fired and space bent for a moment as the energy moved faster than light, cutting through the enemy's crown, breaking its shape, and sending the giant ship falling into itself. The shockwave hit everything around, tearing apart the enemy line. Their ships spun, lost, broken, leaderless, and without will. But the supercarrier was hit too. Its shields failed for the first time, its wings cracked, its lights flickered. The crew was thrown from their seats as the floor shook like the end of the world. But no one screamed, no one gave up, because they were still alive and the ship was still standing. In the science lab deep inside the core, a young girl named Kira held a crystal that glowed brighter with every breath it took. She had been feeding it her voice, her thoughts, her dreams, and now it had learned enough to speak back. It told her one thing: the ship was alive, and it wanted to finish the fight. She ran to the captain and placed the crystal into the control deck, and for the first time, the supercarrier woke, not just with systems, but with something more, with a soul born from light and steel and fire. It moved faster than before, its weapons sang louder, its heartbeat like thunder across the stars, and the enemy ran. The old creatures screamed, their minds torn by fear. They had never known before. They had seen machines, they had seen weapons, but never something alive that was built from pain and hope and fire, something made by humans who refused to kneel, who refused to vanish, who refused to break. The ship hunted them one by one in silence, without mercy, without hate, just purpose, clean, pure, and final, until the last enemy ship faded into the void, and all that remained was the glow of the human supercarrier and the silence of the galaxy bowing to it. The crew cheered as systems came back online, lights returned, and the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. Reyna looked at her people and smiled, knowing they had done the impossible. They had survived, they had won, and they had changed the story of the galaxy forever. The ship now floated in peace, but its lights still burned, and its weapons still waited, because the humans knew peace was a moment, but readiness was forever. They had built something more than war. They had built a warning, a message, and a promise. And out there beyond the known stars, others had watched, others had listened, and now They wondered what else these humans could build, what else they could become, and how much longer before the stars themselves would bow to the will of Earth. And so the legend of the deadliest warship lived on, whispered across planets, written in lost languages, painted in the skies of broken worlds, not as a tale of fear, but as a fire that could never be put out.